My name is Daniel. I never believed in ghosts. I believed in bad wiring, in flickering lights and loose connections, in sleep deprivation doing strange things to the human brain. I believed that when you're tired enough, your mind fills in the gaps. Shadows stretch longer than they should. Sounds feel closer than they really are. I took the night shift because it paid better. Because no one else wanted it. Because sitting alone, watching security monitors, felt easier than dealing with people all day. The kind of fear you don't feel until you're alone, paid to stay awake, and told that nothing ever happens. And because I thought fear was something you grew out of. I was wrong. Night shift isn't scary. It's boring. That's the part people never understand. They imagine darkness and whispers, but most nights are just hours of nothing, broken by the hum of fluorescent lights and the sour smell of burnt coffee. I worked at a remote facility. The kind of place most people didn't know existed unless they had a reason to. One building. A fenced lot. A narrow road that disappeared into the dark. The parking lot was always empty at night. Rows of faded white lines. Cracks filled with dust and dead leaves. My car sat alone under a single flickering light, its engine ticking softly as it cooled. Inside, the building never felt warm. Even in summer, the air carried a permanent chill, like the walls remembered colder seasons. The vending machine near the entrance buzzed constantly, like it was struggling to stay awake. Half the buttons didn't work. The rest sold candy bars that tasted stale and chips that should have been thrown away years ago. I poured coffee at the start of every shift. By midnight, it was cold. By 2 in the morning, it tasted like metal. I drank it anyway. My job was simple. Watch the monitors. Log anything unusual. Don't leave the station unless absolutely necessary. There were 12 cameras. Parking lot. Main entrance. Side doors. Hallways. Storage rooms. Places no one went after dark. Most of the screens showed nothing but stillness. Empty corridors. Closed doors. Lights that never changed. On my first night, nothing happened. I checked the clock more than the cameras. I counted ceiling tiles. I listened to the building breathe. On my second night, I met Carl. Carl had been working there almost 15 years. 2 months away from retirement. He counted his remaining shifts like a prisoner marking days on a wall. He showed me where the logs were kept, how to reset the monitors, which cameras froze when the temperature dropped. Carl never stood with his back to the hallway when he talked. "Night shift's easy," he said. "Just don't get curious." He didn't smile. Melissa worked days. Sometimes evenings. Never nights if she could avoid it. She was efficient. Quiet. She never stayed longer than she had to. When I asked her about the night shift, she shrugged. "Nothing happens," she said. Then she hesitated. "Just stay at your station." No one ever explained what that meant. There were areas we didn't talk about. Not officially. They weren't marked on the main maps. Just blank spaces between camera feeds. One hallway in particular was always skipped during handover. Every time the lower corridor came up on the monitors, someone found a reason to talk about something else. I told myself it was nothing. Cameras glitch. Buildings settle. Old places make noise at night. That's what I believed. That's what I needed to believe. The third night started like the others. Same empty parking lot. Same buzzing vending machine. Same cold coffee sitting untouched beside the keyboard. I watched the monitors and let my mind drift. That's the danger of night shift. When nothing happens long enough, you start noticing things you would have ignored during the day. The first thing I noticed was a shape. Camera 7. Lower corridor. It wasn't clear at first. Just a darker patch against the wall, standing where no one should have been. I leaned closer to the screen. The shape didn't move, didn't sway, didn't shift its weight. I checked the thermal overlay. Nothing. No heat signature. No outline. I blinked, looked away, looked back. The corridor was empty. Stress, I told myself. Long hours. Too much caffeine. An hour later I heard a sound. Not from the speakers. Not from the radio. From somewhere inside the building. A dull knock. Slow. Deliberate. I froze, listening. There was no follow-up. No footsteps. No echo. Old pipes, I thought. Metal expanding. Contracting. Then the cold arrived. Not gradual. Not creeping in through vents. It arrived all at once. One moment the room felt normal. The next, my breath fogged in front of me. The air grew thick, heavy, like it was pressing against my skin. I checked the thermostat. Normal. The smell came next. Metallic. Sharp. Iron. I covered my mouth without thinking. Then I heard my name. Daniel. Not shouted. Whispered. It didn't sound wrong. That was the problem. The shape returned on camera 7. Closer. Still no heat. Whatever it was, it didn't arrive. It was already there. I didn't sleep after the third night. I lay in my apartment with the lights on, watching the ceiling fan turn slow circles, listening for sounds that didn't belong. When morning came, I told myself it was stress. A new job. A strange building. Too much caffeine. But the truth was simpler. I was scared. And I didn't know what I was scared of. So the next night, I came in early. Not because I was eager. Because I wanted answers while there were still people around. The day shift was packing up when I arrived. Melissa was signing paperwork at the front desk, keys jingling softly on her belt. Carl was finishing his last hour before heading home. I tried to sound casual. "Hey," I said. "Is there a manual for the night shift?" Carl didn't look up. He wrote something on a clipboard, then set it down very carefully, like sudden movements mattered. "A manual," he repeated. Melissa froze, just for a second. Then she picked up her bag. "You'll figure it out," she said too fast. Her eyes never went near the monitor wall. Carl finally met my gaze. "You see something?" he asked. I almost lied. Almost. But the memory of that shape on camera 7 standing there without heat, without movement, was still burned into my mind. "I saw something," I said. "And I heard things." Carl nodded once. Slow. "Come here," he said. He led me past the break area, past a row of filing cabinets, nobody used anymore, to a storage closet that smelled like dust and old cardboard. He shut the door behind us. The light buzzed overhead. Carl stared at the shelves for a long moment, like he wasn't sure where to begin. Then, he reached behind a metal cabinet that sat flush against the wall, like it hadn't been moved in years. He pulled out a folded piece of paper, yellowed, creased, written in black ink, handwriting, not printed, not official. At the top, in block letters, night shift rules. Read them. Follow them. Carl didn't hand it to me right away. "Management doesn't know about that," he said. or they pretend they don't. I swallowed. At the bottom of the page was a name. H. Turner. The ink around it was darker, like the pen had pressed too hard. "Don't ask where he went," Carl said. He finally handed me the paper. It felt heavier than it should have been. Not physically. Mentally. The rules weren't written like jokes. They weren't written like folklore. They were written like someone had survived long enough to learn what didn't kill them. Carl watched my face as I read. "These rules aren't for keeping you safe," he said. "They're for keeping something contained." I read the first one. Rule 1. Never respond if you hear your name over the intercom. Not even once. My throat tightened. The intercom system hadn't been mentioned in training. It wasn't even in the handbook. But I'd heard my name. Carl saw my reaction. "It tries different ways," he said quietly. "Intercom's just the easiest." "What happens if you answer?" I asked. Carl stared at the metal wall. "It learns your voice," he said. "Perfectly. Then it can use it." I laughed once, sharp and nervous. "That's not how." I said. "Don't argue," Carl cut in. The closet felt smaller. I moved on. Rule 2. If a camera shows someone standing still for more than 30 seconds, turn it off. Do not zoom. Do not enhance. Do not stare. Camera 7. Lower corridor. "How do you turn it off?" I asked. Carl pointed toward the control room. "Power switch under the console," he said. 10 seconds off. Then back on. "Why?" Carl looked at me. "Because it knows when you're watching," he said. "And if you stare long enough." He didn't finish. I imagined something on the other side of the lens, standing perfectly still, waiting for attention like a starving animal. Rule 3. Do not enter the lower level after 2:07 a.m. If you are already down there at 2:17, leave immediately. Do not run. Do not speak 2:17. Too specific to be superstition. "That hallway's sealed," I said. "That's part of it," Carl replied. "You don't open the door. You don't stand near it. And if someone does..." Carl's jaw tightened. "Then don't follow." He said it like he'd learned the hard way. Rule 4. If the lights go out, stay seated and count to 100. Do not move. "What kind of power issues does this place have?" I asked. Carl shook his head. "It's not the power." I read the next line, written smaller. "If you hear footsteps, count slower." Carl leaned closer. "At 42, he said, "it usually whispers that counting doesn't matter. That it's already too late." Rule 5. Do not look directly at reflections after midnight. Not in glass. Not in monitors. Not in metal. "That's impossible," I said. Carl nodded. "That's the point. It wants you to look." I thought of the dark monitor screens. The microwave door. My phone. Every reflective surface suddenly felt hostile. Rule 6. If you smell iron, hold your breath. Do not inhale until the smell is gone. My chest tightened. "Why?" Carl's voice dropped. "Because that's when it's close," he said. "Close enough that the air changes." He hesitated. "It's not a ghost," he added. "It was here before the building. Before the road. Before any of us." Rule 7. If you hear someone crying in the hallway, Do not open the door. Do not call out. Turn up the radio and watch the clock. It uses what works, Carl said. Sometimes it sounds like a kid. Sometimes a woman. Sometimes. He stopped. Sometimes someone you know. Rule 8. If you see a face you recognize on a camera feed, turn away. Do not confirm IT. Do not replay IT. Write down the time. Pretend you never saw IT. A face you recognize, I whispered. Carl nodded. It hunts with familiarity, he said. With voices you trust. With faces you almost recognize. I looked up. What happened to Turner? Carl didn't meet my eyes. Turner answered the intercom, he said. Once. Silence filled the closet. Carl folded the paper and pressed it into my hand. Keep it on you, he said. Not in a drawer. On you. Then he opened the door. Your shift starts now, he said. And Daniel? I looked at him. Curiosity is how it eats, he said. So don't feed it. He walked away. I returned to the control room and sat down. The monitors glowed. The building hummed. I put the rules on the desk, then stopped. Rule 5. I slid the paper into my pocket instead. I checked the clock, 11:58 p.m. The air felt normal. The coffee tasted burnt. Everything looked the same. And that was the worst part. Because now I knew the difference between nothing happening and something waiting. When the clock clicked to 12:00, the intercom crackled once. Just static. Then, softly, Daniel. I didn't answer. By the 5th night, I wasn't working a shift anymore. I was surviving one. Sleep came in fragments. Short, shallow stretches that ended with my heart racing and the taste of metal in my mouth. I stopped drinking coffee after midnight. I stopped looking at reflective surfaces without thinking. I stopped trusting silence. The rules stayed folded in my pocket. I touched them like a rosary. The night started quietly. Too quietly. The parking lot cameras showed nothing but empty asphalt. The building hummed at a steady pitch. Even the vending machine seemed subdued. I checked the clock. 12:41 a.m. That was when the intercom crackled. Not a full activation. Just a brief pop of static. My body tensed instantly. Rule 1. Never respond. I stayed seated. I counted my breaths. 1, 2, 3. The intercom went silent again. But the cold followed. It rolled in after 1 o'clock like it had learned the schedule. The temperature dropped fast enough to make my teeth ache. My breath fogged in front of me. Then came the smell. Iron. Sharp. Clean. Like fresh blood on cold metal. Rule 6. I held my breath. My lungs burned. My eyes watered. The smell lingered longer than it ever had before. When it finally faded, I pulled in a careful breath and tasted nothing but dust and burnt coffee. I started typing a log entry with shaking fingers when the radio clicked on by itself. A burst of white noise. Then a voice. Low. Strained. Help me. It sounded like it came from the hallway outside the control room. Rule 7. Do not open the door. Do not call out. I didn't move. My hand shook as I turned the radio volume up, flooding the room with static until it drowned out everything else. I fixed my eyes on the clock. 2:04 a.m. 13 minutes. The door handle outside rattled softly. Not violent. Not frantic. Just a slow, testing twist. Like someone checking if it was locked. I stayed seated. I counted slower. Because I heard footsteps. Light. Careful. Crossing the hallway. Stopping right outside my door. The radio hissed louder. Then the intercom crackled again. And it said my name. Daniel. The voice was gentle. Almost familiar. Like a coworker leaning in to ask a question. I didn't answer. I didn't breathe. The intercom clicked off. For a moment, the building felt like it exhaled. Then the lights flickered. Once. Twice. And went out completely. Rule 4. Stay seated and count to 100. I stayed seated. I started counting in my head. 1. 2. The darkness wasn't normal. It felt thick. Close. At 12, I heard movement. Not in the hallway. In the control room. Something shifting. Fabric brushing against itself. A slow drag across the carpet. I counted slower. 13. 14. At 28, the smell of iron returned. Stronger. I held my breath until my chest screamed. 30. 31. At 42, it whispered. Right beside my ear. Counting doesn't matter. It's already too late. I didn't turn. 43. 44. At 57, I felt warmth behind me. Not human warmth. A pressure in the air. Like standing too close to a running engine. I kept my eyes forward. Rule 5. Do not look at reflections. In the dark, the monitor screens were mirrors. 60. 61. A wet sound slid past my ear. Not a word. Just the shape of a sound trying to remember language. 70. My hands went numb on the edge of the desk. 80. The footsteps stopped behind me. I could feel something breathing. Not with lungs. With space. 90. At 100, the light snapped back on. Hard. Bright. The control room was empty. The radio was silent. The intercom was dead. I sat there, shaking, and told myself I'd made it through another test. Then camera 7 changed. The lower corridor feed brightened by itself, as if someone had adjusted the exposure. At the far end of the hall stood the sealed door. It wasn't open, but the darkness around it looked deeper. A shape stood in front of it, perfectly still. No heat signature. Rule 2. Turn the camera off. I reached for the power switch and hesitated. Because for a split second, the shape looked like Carl. Same shoulders. Same posture. I yanked my hand back. Rule 8. If you see a face you recognize, turn away. I forced myself to look at another screen. Parking lot. Empty. Main entrance. Empty. My heart pounded against my ribs. That's when the intercom clicked on again. A clean activation. Then Carl's voice. Clear. Tired. Daniel, it said. You there? My stomach dropped. Carl didn't work nights anymore. But the voice was perfect. The same rhythm. The same pauses. Familiarity weaponized. Daniel, it said again. Open up. It's freezing out here. My mouth moved on instinct. Rule 1. Never respond. I swallowed and stayed silent. The voice sighed. Then changed, just slightly. Daniel, it whispered. I need you. The hallway lights dimmed, like the building leaned closer to listen. Then something worse happened. The security phone rang. Nobody used that phone. It was an old landline for emergencies only. It rang anyway. Once. Twice. I didn't answer. On the third ring, it stopped. And the intercom spoke again. Not as Carl. As me, my voice. Perfect. Yeah, it said. I'm here. I froze. I hadn't spoken. The building had spoken for me. A second voice answered. A real one. From the hallway. Daniel? Someone called. You okay? Evan. A maintenance tech. Young. Friendly. Not scheduled for nights. I stood up too fast. No, I whispered. Then clamped my mouth shut. Rule 1. Never respond. But Evan was real. I grabbed the rules from my pocket. My fingers numb. Don't open the door. Don't call out. Stay seated. Evan's footsteps approached. "Intercom's acting weird," he said. "I heard your voice." My chest tightened. He believed it. The door handle rattled. "It's locked," Evan muttered. "Daniel, open it." The intercom clicked. My voice again. "Yeah," it said. "Come down here." Evan went still. "Down where?" he asked. The intercom answered in Carl's voice. "Lower level." There was a pause. Then Evan laughed. Nervous. Uncertain. "Carl, is that you?" He smiled when he heard his name. He answered. "Rule 1. Never respond." Evan didn't know. "Yeah," Carl's voice said. "It's me. Hurry." Footsteps moved away from my door. Toward camera 7. I didn't think. I flipped the camera 7 power switch off. The screen went black. I counted 10 seconds.
1.
At 7, the intercom screamed with static. At 10, I flipped the camera back on. The lower corridor feed returned. Evan stood halfway down the hall. He moved slowly, like he was sleepwalking. His eyes were open, unfocused. Behind him, the sealed door was no longer sealed. It was open a crack. Something stood in the gap, not fully visible. Just a slice of darkness shaped like a person. No heat signature. Evan stopped, tilted his head, listening. "Yeah," he said softly. "I'm here." The darkness moved. Not like a body stepping forward. Like a shadow unfolding. Then something wearing Evan's face leaned out of the doorway. It smiled. Not wide. Not dramatic. Just a small, satisfied curve. Like it had finally been invited inside. Evan didn't scream. He didn't fall. He was simply gone. The hallway stood empty. But Evan's face remained on the screen. Too close to the camera. Watching me. Then the feed cut out. All monitors went to static. The intercom crackled. Evan's voice whispered my name. "Daniel." Something knocked on the control room door. Once. Twice. Slow. Deliberate. Like a polite request. I backed away from the console. The clock read 2:18 a.m. Past 2:17. I grabbed my keys and locked myself inside the small interior office. No windows. Steel door. I shut it. I locked it. I held my breath. Outside, footsteps moved through the control room. Not rushed. Not angry. Patient. Then a voice at the door. My voice. "Daniel," it said softly. "Open up." I didn't answer. The voice sighed. Then whispered, almost kindly. "You already did." I didn't walk out of that place like a hero. I waited. In that small interior office, with the steel door and no windows, I sat on the floor with my back against the wall and counted my breaths until the sun came up. I don't remember falling asleep. I just remember waking up to silence. Real silence. No footsteps. No knocking. No voices pretending to care. When I finally unlocked the door, the control room looked normal again. Monitors glowing. Coffee cups still on the desk. My jacket hanging on the back of the chair. Like nothing had happened. That was the first time I understood the real danger of the night shift. The building didn't need chaos to break you. It only needed normal. Normal enough to make you doubt your own memory. Carl showed up at 7:05 a.m. He moved slower than usual, like he'd carried something heavy for too long. He took one look at my face and didn't ask questions.
PPs.
He walked straight to the monitor console and pulled up the logs. "Where's Evan?" I asked. Carl didn't answer right away. He rewound camera 7. Except there was nothing to rewind. No footage. No anomaly report. No timestamp. Just a clean stretch of empty hallway from 1:30 a.m. to 3:00 a.m., like the night had been scrubbed. Carl's hands tightened on the mouse. "It does that," he said quietly. "What do you mean it does that?" My voice sounded too loud in the morning light. Carl stared at the sealed door on the feed, the one I'd seen open. "It edits the story," he said. "So the only proof left is you." My stomach turned. I filed a report anyway. I wrote everything down. The intercom, the cold, the smell of iron, Evan's voice, Evan's face on the monitor. I printed it, signed it, made copies. By lunch, the report was gone. Not misplaced. Gone. The folder on the shared drive was empty. The email I sent myself never arrived. Even the printed pages in my bag were blank. White paper. No ink. Like the words had never existed. That should have been impossible. But at that point, I'd learned the difference between impossible and inconvenient. They told the police Evan never showed up that night. They said he clocked out early. They said he left the property. They said a lot of things. And none of them sounded like the truth. 2 days later, management called me into an office I'd never seen before. A man in a clean shirt, with a friendly smile that didn't reach his eyes, asked me to walk him through the incident. He said the word incident like it was a broken vending machine. Like it was a minor inconvenience. I told him everything. I watched his expression carefully. He didn't react. Not once. When I finished, he nodded slowly. "Night shift can be stressful," he said. "Long hours. Isolation. Poor sleep." He slid a form across the desk. A resignation form. "Take some time," he said. "Get some rest. We'll mark this as voluntary separation." Voluntary. Like I had a choice. I signed it. I told myself I was done. I packed my things, left the rules folded in my pocket, and never went back. For a while, that worked. I moved to a different town. I took another night job security at a small warehouse near the interstate. More lights. More cameras. More people close enough that I could hear them breathe. I told myself it was safer because it wasn't remote. But night is night. And silence is silence. And some habits don't leave you. I still check corners before I walk into a room. I still avoid looking at my own reflection after midnight. Midnight. I still hold my breath, sometimes for no reason at all. Carl retired. That's what I heard. He sent me one text months later. 2 words. Still listening. It arrived at 2:17 a.m. I stared at it for a long time before I realized my hands were shaking. I didn't reply. Because I didn't know if it was really Carl. That's another thing you learn. After a while, you stop trusting messages. You stop trusting voices. You stop trusting anything that can be copied. Last week, at my new job, the building went quiet around 2:17. Not a normal quiet. A held breath quiet. The fluorescent lights didn't hum. The vents didn't whisper. Even the distant highway noise felt muted, like someone had turned the world's volume down. I felt the air thicken. Then the smell of iron touched the back of my throat. I froze. My lungs tightened like they remembered the rule before I did. And then, from the old intercom speaker, above the loading dock, a system I never used, in a building that wasn't supposed to have one, came a soft crackle of static, a pause, and my name, Daniel, not shouted, not angry, soft, patient, like it had all the time in the world, like it knew. I'd answer one day. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I counted to 100. And in the reflection of the dark monitor screen, just for a second, I saw a smile that wasn't mine. And this time, it was waiting for me to speak first.